Trita Parsi is the Executive Vice President of the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft and joins us now from Washington, D.C. Trita, it's good to have you with us again. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I was reading something that you recently wrote, and you called the blockade of the blockade by the U.S. a delusional silver bullet. But if it is keeping Iran in the negotiation process, is it not working?
The negotiations were taking place and could have continued to take place regardless of the blockade. The blockade has nothing to do with the Iranians being at the table. The blockade is blocking diplomatic progress more than anything else, and also has backfired on Trump in the sense that once Trump managed to get the ceasefire, which was through diplomacy, pre-blockade, he actually ended up getting the greatest benefit of that ceasefire because the primary pressure on him, the war itself and the manner that it was pushing up gas prices, actually was now taken off. And had he just stayed in that scenario and used time to his advantage, he would have been in a much better position vis-a-vis the Iranians, because the Iranians had not managed to get the key thing they wanted, which is sanctions relief. But because of the fact that he imposed the blockade, he actually took more oil off of the market. And oil prices are now higher during the ceasefire than it was during the war itself. And we've also seen the 10-year yield going up to 4.4, getting closer to 4.5. So all of these different economic indicators show that the blockade is actually making the situation worse for Trump. And the assumption he had that he had more time on his side was absolutely true as long as he didn't impose the blockade.
We have not heard from the president about what is in this 14-point proposal, this most recent one from Iran yet, or what might be different in it from the last one. Why do you think he might be so pessimistic about it off the hop?
I think it is part of his public approach to these negotiations, in which he wants to give the impression that he is not looking for a deal. He's not desperate for a deal. It's the other side that is desperate for a deal, that he's playing very hard to get. So I think there's a messaging that is coming publicly from the Trump administration. And I think the private one is probably quite different. That does not mean, however, that the two sides are not very far away from each other. At least what has been made public by the Iranian media of what may be in that proposal, the Iranians are making very, very significant demands. What is not revealed in the Iranian media is what it is that the Iranians are offering Trump in return. And if those offers actually are pretty far-reaching, then this actually may be a basis for some form of a more advanced negotiation that could lead to a deal.
I feel like I've been asking this question for about 2 months now, and I'm not sure if you have an answer for me, but is there a point where this gets too expensive to continue? At what point does the economic repercussion of this blockade become too much for either side to continue to bear?
I think it has also already proven itself to be too expensive for the U.S. side. It is definitely imposing a cost on the Iranian side as well. But reality is Iran has been under all kinds of economic pressures and sanctions for 47 years. None of them have managed to break the Iranians or force them to capitulate. And all of them, the Iranians have managed to find ways around, and they're already finding ways to circumvent the blockade as well. But the manner in which the blockade is pushing up oil prices, which is having a direct political impact on Trump at home, goes beyond what I think the White House had anticipated.
How long can both sides hold out if that's the case?
I think they can probably hold out for a couple more weeks, but bottom line is the situation for both of them are just going to get worse. And at the same time, other countries are suffering tremendously from this. You have fuel shortages in many Asian countries right now. It just was revealed today that Kuwait has not exported any oil at all for a whole month now. This has not happened for about 30 or 40 years. So plenty of other countries are paying a very, very high economic price because of this conflict. And at some point, there's going to be greater political pressure from other powers, China, for instance, in order for this deal to reach some sort of a diplomatic solution.
And when we talk about sort of the repercussions that are happening from this and the ripple effects, we heard the president say just a bit earlier that there will be more than 5,000 troops taken out of Germany, U.S. troops withdrawn from Germany. I wonder what you think that means for the American relationship and the American strategy going forward with its European allies.
Well, we already seen that the transatlantic relationship is in unprecedented crisis. There are elements or factors here that are mostly because of Trump, but there are factors here that are structural. That means that they would have occurred one way or another, even if Trump was not president. And part of it is that it's simply too expensive for the United States to continue this policy of offering the Europeans the security umbrella absent far greater burden sharing by the Europeans themselves. But beyond that, in the manner that this war has now ended, or at least as it has been conducted so far, we also see that the United States' ability to sustain primacy militarily is also under question right now, because the United States essentially has lost this war strategically at a minimum. And shows that the Iranians could do to the United States what the Ukrainians have managed to do to the Russians. That's going to raise question marks about the utility, about the not just the reliability, but also the effectiveness of America's security umbrella in many other places, not just in the Middle East.
Trita Parsi, Executive Vice President of the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, thank you very much for being with us here on Al Jazeera.